Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down this 8-game NBA slate here on DraftKings, looking to continue the success from this weekend into this week. It was a great weekend for PGA for me, as well as the NFL. So I'm going to be talking through some of my favorite early look core plays here based on the injury news we have so far. So let's get into the breakdown. As always, guys, make sure to check out all my socials linked down below. My Twitter is @HartDFS. My free Patreon link down below, which the NBA slate write-ups are going to be happening every day now. For the rest of the NBA season, now that the NFL is winding down. Only one more weekend left with that. But yeah, make sure to check out all my socials linked down below. Please hit that like button, as it does really help my channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Now let's get into this breakdown. So starting off with the first game, we have Orlando versus Philly. Obviously, there's some blowout risk if Joel Embiid plays. So if he does, there's not a lot of interest for me right now in this Orlando side. Sure, in a tournament setting, you could definitely get to a Banchero. You can get to like the top four for me on the Magic side, like Paolo, Franz, Wendell, Fultz. They're all there. I mean, they're not real standout plays at their price tags. You know, Paolo kind of been very, very down recently with everyone kind of back and healthy. Wendell, I'd like him if, Embiid was out. If Embiid's in, obviously there's a huge foul trouble risk. You could still go to him. It's a decent price tag for him. Still has some upside. Fultz is there. It does have some upside as well. In that Chicago game, I mean, they were blown out. It was like a 25-point game until about like midway through the third, where they really turned it on and kept it close. But as of right now, there's really no interest. You got to take a shot on Cole Anthony. He's been decent recently. He's just very, very score independent. Bol looks like a decent tournament option just in terms of like value. Like he should see 15 to 20-ish minutes right now. And that's really it. So, like Mo Wagner had his best game of the season last game. Don't really trust that. There's just not a lot of interest for me in the Orlando side right now. Moving on to Philadelphia, obviously the big news is Embiid. If he's in, it's really just going to be Embiid and Harden for me, as very, very solid spin-up plays on the slate. With me giving the slight edge to Embiid, even though he's very expensive there compared to Harden. Obviously, if Embiid's out, Harden looks great, Maxey looks solid. Harden looks great, Maxey looks great, Harris looks very solid, and then whoever starts at center, Harrell, maybe even Paul Reed if they get weird, would look fanstastic. Moving on to the Lakers. Lakers side, obviously LeBron, AD are out. So they'll most likely start Schroeder, Bryant, Lonnie. I'd assume Hachimura and Pat Beverly. Maybe Troy Brown gets thrown in there. We'll have to wait and see. But right now, I do really like the guards between Schroeder and Russ. I mean, Schroeder's going to start. We've seen some huge games from him recently with like LeBron back, but without LeBron, there's a few here. I think it was like he got 49 versus Miami. He's had 36, so he's very, very solid upside. With no LeBron there, like he gets aggressive, he looks to score, so I think he looks very, very good there. It's 5,400. Obviously, we know what we're getting from Russ off the bench. Just really hope this game stays close. Versus Brooklyn, Thomas Bryant is really hard not to get to him. I mean, they've been kind of going back and forth between who they've been closing the games with. Like a lot of times it's been Wendell recently. Before that it was Bryant. I mean, we know he has huge upside, especially if he's going to be playing close to 30 minutes, if not more, as you can see versus Portland, 55.5. So really, you just kind of hope the minutes are there for Thomas. They should be. So at 5,000, I think he's almost a lock for today at that price tag. You just hope this game stays close so they don't just go to Wendell at the end. In terms of like the other guys, Lonnie, I don't think he's going to be getting enough minutes to play him. I do have a good amount of interest in Hachimura. He seems very, very cheap. He's already been seeing mid-20s minutes for them the past few games, 22, 24. And now with no LeBron, no AD, I mean, he should see at least 25, if not more. He's going to be super aggressive. So 4,100, I think he looks like one of the best value plays on the day. Once again, Pat Bev, you can go there if you want. He should play a good amount of minutes. I just don't trust the fantasy output for him. Troy Brown, he's an okay value play. He'll play mid-20s minutes. He's not going to be the most aggressive. Wynn, you can go there. If Thomas Bryant's going to be super, super high owned, you could definitely take a shot on Wynn to pivot off of him. But yeah, right now it's just going to be kind of the main guys I touched on. On the Brooklyn side, really, the only interest for me is Kyrie. Obviously, he's been playing fantastic, as you can see the past 4 or 5 games. Been playing out of his mind. Once again, another great matchup here with no LeBron, no AD. Kyrie should be able to feast. He looks like one of the top spin-up plays of the day. Nick Claxton, I mean, you can't really argue with what he's been doing the past 5-6 games since KD's been out. Pretty much averaging 40 or more fantasy points per game. Double-double pretty much every game as well. So 8,100 going against Thomas Bryant defense. Once again, Claxton and Kyrie look fantastic. Even if Ben Simmons is back, it really doesn't affect Claxton right now. He's just been playing out of his mind. So, if Ben Simmons is back, it does affect the guys like Royce, Seth, Joe Harris, Yuta, even TJ Warren if he does play. If he's out, Sure, you can get to one of these guys. My favorite probably would be Joe Harris just because of that price tag. But yeah, really no interest in the value for Brooklyn as of right now. I don't think there's a need to go up to those guys in the 5Ks when you can go to the guys on the Lakers side for like 3K. On the Golden State side, Steph is always a very solid spin up in tournament setting. Gets a great matchup here versus OKC. Obviously, there's some blowout risk, so that's the only issue here for me. Poole with everyone back, no need to get to him for me. I'd rather take a shot on Klay Thompson, who we saw last game. It's been great pretty much the past month. After a very, very bad start to the season, he's really kicked it in the gear. What is he averaging? Close to 35, I'd say, fantasy points per game when you take out like the first month of him being back. So him and Steph are probably my favorite ones. And then Green and Wiggins, I do have a little bit of interest in them. The price tags are pretty cheap for, kind of the output they could definitely give us in this, setting against OKC. It's just, I hope this game stays close. And if it does, sure you can get to them. But right now, my interest really only lies in Steph and Klay and maybe Wiggins. On the OKC side, SGA, Giddey, both guys offer a good amount of upside here. Obviously, it's a great matchup for both of them. It's just, you hope this game stays close, as I mentioned a bunch of times. So I think for that reason, these guys are going to be a little bit lower owned compared to other people on the slates. So I don't mind getting them. Jalen Williams is always a solid GPP play. He's very up and down. As you can see, he's a decent ceiling. He also has a very low floor. So 5,300, I think that's a fair price tag for him. Lou Dort is out, so it should be a little bit more minutes for him. I would assume they start Aaron Wiggins again, 3,400. I think he makes for a fair value play. If this game blows out, I don't think his minutes are guaranteed for him to get that blowout round. They could definitely go to a bunch of other guys off the bench. But yeah, right now it's just be the top two guys for me. Sure, you get to Kenrich Williams. It's just his minutes really haven't gone up a ton at all. Isaiah Joe, you could take a dart throw on him, but it's really just going to be the top two guys for me. Moving on to Sacramento and Minnesota. It looks like one of the best plays or one of the best spots today to target in terms of DFS. Obviously, you always want to attack Sacramento. Minnesota really doesn't play any defense right now, so both great teams to attack on the DFS GPP setting. So with that in mind, Sabonis looks great. Don't think a lot of people are going to get to him just because he's been pretty bad the past 4 games, especially the past 2. Just in terms of what you want from a $10,000 player. So I do like him a good amount. It's a great matchup here versus Gobert. Fox looks very solid. I really haven't got to him yet on the season, but we know his upside. It's just, can he score enough? I think he can in this matchup versus D'Angelo Russell. So I do like Fox a good amount as well. And then for the rest of the guys, like Herter, Barnes, Murray, Monk, they're all, tournament setting or tournament options. I'd prefer out of that group, Herter and Monk. We know they just have a little bit higher of a ceiling. They do have some pretty low floors if they're not hitting their shots, but both of those guys look like my favorite out of that group of 4. So a lot of interest in Sacramento and a good amount of interest in Anthony Edwards. He's probably going to be one of the top spend up plays on the day. 9,400. It's just because the minutes are there, usage is there. It really just comes down to him hitting his shots. Like, he's been great at peripheral stats, and he's just playing a ton of minutes right now. So he looks like a great spin up play. He's gonna be super popular. I don't think he's a must play, but I think he's getting close to that area just because of this matchup. Because you really want to target the Sacramento Kings because they're just terrible at defense. I think D'Lo once again looks pretty good. The only issue I have with D'Lo is his minutes have really skyrocketed the past 4 games, but he's been playing super well. And we know D'Lo has a very low floor. As you can see here, 32 minutes versus Denver, only 23. 21 minutes, 10.5. 34 minutes, 29.5. 25. Still, he does have a very low floor. And if he's going to be super popular alongside Ant-Man, I don't think there's a need to get to him. But it's hard to argue with the minutes once again. He's been shooting the ball very good. And he has, very solid upside. So good amount of interest in him. And I have a decent amount of interest in Rudy Gobert, who should be able to play. Should see 30+ minutes. Hasn't had a huge game recently since the beginning of the month. But yeah, he looks okay as well. And then in terms of the value, sure, you could get to Anderson, McDaniels. They're fair plays. Naz Reid, you can always take a shot on him if you think Gobert might get in foul trouble. Taurean Prince, if he plays, definitely a decent value play. If he's out, we can definitely look to a Noel, maybe even Austin Rivers to kind of fill in, but I don't think there's a need to get down to either one of them. Moving on to the Washington side. With Porzingis back, I'm sure one of these guys will have a huge game. I don't know who will be. It's always super random. I'd give the lean to a guy like Porzingis just because he seems to be aggressive when he's like the main one out of those three guys. Beal's more of a playmaker now. He's just been bad. Kuzma's there. But yeah, no real standouts for me. If they start Gafford, it does limit the ceiling of Porzingis in terms of like rebounds. So that does just make it where it's like I have zero interest at all. It hurts, with Porzingis back, it hurts Denny off the bench. There's just not really any standout plays. Sure, you could take a dart throw on DeLon Wright at 4,100. He's been seeing 20 plus minutes. I'm sure he'll still see that, but no real standouts with the full team healthy. Moving on to the Spurs. Keldon Johnson's there, 7,200. Don't mind him. Trey Jones, 5,900. He's just kind of there. Once again, team that I have really no interest in besides Podol. You really hope he gets some minutes. If he does, he has a very solid ceiling at 5,800. But he can always go out there, get in foul trouble, or play like 23 minutes randomly. Sohan, a little bit of interest in him. The minutes haven't been great, but he's actually been decent the past few games. 28, 27, 34, 28, 47 and a half. Be interesting to see if people chase this. I'm assuming some people will. If Richardson's back, does eat into some of the minutes of the starters. They have Collins, McDermott, Langford might be back. So not a lot of interest in that game at all, really. Moving on to Detroit. We got Bogdan, Ivy, Bay. Once again, another team that they're all just kind of there. If I had to get to anyone, it'd probably be, Ivy or Bogdan, just because they're guys offering the highest ceiling so far. Ivy's minutes have slowly started to creep down a little bit. I mean, a few blowouts, but 30, 32, and then 28. You don't really like to see that, even though he's been productive when he's out there. So not a lot of interest for me in this Detroit side. Maybe Duran, but it's another hard matchup for them against Dallas. Stewart coming off the bench, 24 minutes. So it's not a lock to like for Detroit besides Burks if he does start again. So I have to keep an eye out on that. I will mention Hamidou Diallo. He's seen about 20-ish minutes. He's been super, super productive when he's out there. So once again, if this game does well, it does help his minutes as well. So you can definitely look to him. He helped me out that last game versus Houston. Got me 30 and 20 minutes. Obviously, it really helped to get 5 steals and then 4 steals the game before that. But I will mention he's a guy who's very, very productive when he's out there. And if you think this game blows out, if Luka does play, you could definitely get to him. On the Dallas side, it really just depends on Luka. If he's playing, it's a fantastic matchup. Obviously here for Luka, won't be surprised if he goes for 200 fantasy points. If he's out, once again, Dinwiddie looks great at 8,500. Then it would make other guys more playable, like a Hardaway Jr. look good. DFS would actually look decent. Powell looks okay. But then, Green look good. Bullock would look good. So it really just depends on that Luka news. Moving on to the last 2 games, Toronto and Phoenix. Toronto side, OG is still, once again, out. I still prefer getting to Siakam, Van Fleet. Scotty Barnes does offer, a pretty solid ceiling, as you can see here recently. So I don't mind him. Gary Trent, a little bit too scoring dependent for me at 6,400, even though the minutes have been very, very good on him. Precious Achua, he's just been playing out of his mind recently, coming off a 50 fantasy point game. Minutes have been fantastic. He's just been super, super aggressive, been getting those double-doubles. So once again, I think he's going to be super popular. Going to be hard not playing him at 5,100 when he's seeing those minutes. He's shooting the ball a good amount as well. I like him a good amount. He'll be super popular. Boucher, I think he's a great pivot play. The minutes haven't been that great on him, but he's super productive when he's out there. They've been playing him a lot more recently. Before that, he was struggling to get minutes. Now he's playing close to 20 minutes a game the past 5-6 games. So I think those two were probably my favorites, followed by Siakam and Van Fleet. Moving on to Phoenix, Chris Paul is just playing very, very good recently, so I don't mind him. Maybe a little bit of, I wouldn't say blowout risk, but there's a chance this game just becomes very ugly and slow paced. So you keep that in mind. But yeah, Chris Paul 8,200 looks solid. Ayton, I still have a good amount of interest in him at 7,800. We know he's going to shoot the ball a ton. He has the double-double upside. So once again, he looks very solid at the price tag. Bridges is just kind of there, kind of more of just an okay play in the mid-range. Cam Johnson, I still have interest in him at 5,700, even though he's scoring dependent. We know he's a very solid ceiling, especially if he's hitting the shot. So I think he still offers some upside there at that price tag. He's almost priced about right, but not yet. And that's really it. No interest in these value plays. Sure, you can get to a Torrey Craig. I don't mind him, but that's really it. Dario, meh. And then moving on to the last game, Atlanta and Portland. For the Atlanta side, obviously the big news is Trae Young. If he's in 9,700, he looks solid. If he's out, you could take that. You could be a shark, try to play a DeJounte Murray there at 7,900, hoping that Trae Young's out. You can construct your lineup around that. Obviously, it sucks if Trae Young gets ruled in, but DeJounte at that price tag still offers some upside. So you can definitely do that. I do like Capella good on at 6,000 as well. once again, a lot of good tournament, center plays on this board. Collins just kind of there, Hunter there, a decent value play, 5,100, seen a ton of minutes. Figure you'd be anywhere between like 28 to 35 fantasy points. Bogdan, another tournament guy you could take a shot on. But really, it's just going to be kind of the top 3 for me, and that's really it on the Portland side. The big news is Dame. Coming off, he was terrible that last game. I know he really turned it on in the second half, but I think he had like 10 fantasy points at half. So once again, he's been super, super hot, scoring the ball. You can continue to get to him. I just think that price tag now, he's just getting a little bit too pricey for me. A little bit too scoring dependent at that, price tag. Would rather pay down for other people or pay up for other people. So he's just kind of there for me. Nurkic did miss their pass game against Utah. Eubanks did start. So once again, you could play around that fact that, maybe Nurkic is out once again. Eubanks, came in, saw 22 minutes. I'm not going to see like 30 minutes. He'll split that time between him and, Trenton Wofford. They'll kind of split the center minutes. Looks like Trenton got a little bit more minutes. But yeah, not a ton of interest, even though Eubanks is pretty cheap. It's really just going to be, Dame for me if you want to get to him. I don't mind, Jeremy Grant there. Finally had a decent game after a rough stretch there. So a little bit interesting in Portland for me. It'd really just be Jeremy Grant and maybe Dame. Simon's price is appealing a little bit. It's just he's scoring dependent. So yeah, not a lot of interest for me in that Portland side as of right now, unless we get some more news. And that's going to do it today for me, guys. I really think you guys should focus on the Lakers value plays and then kind of build from there. Obviously, the Sacramento, Minnesota side probably looks like the best game environment to kind of get your pieces from. So yeah, that's doing it for the breakdown today, guys. Make sure to check out my price pick video, which will be coming out a little bit after this. Hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.